Dan Myers here to tell you about State Farm Insurance agents Eric Means in Shakopee and Andy Hedlund in Rogers. When it comes to hockey talk, Gorgie and I have you covered. And when it comes to ensuring what is most important to you, Eric and Andy are the very best in the business. Both of these guys are hockey guys. Meansy, he played for the Gophers, while Heads, he played college hockey in Mankato for the Mavericks. Hashtag horns up. Meansy is my State Farm agent, and even though I live on the wrong side of the river, he's able to take care of all my home and auto insurance needs. So if you're like me and you live in that state to the east, yikes. Or maybe you live in Minnesota and you have a lake, home, or property in Wisconsin, call Eric Means in Shakopee and have him take care of you as well. 952-446-7067. That's 952-446-7067. Maybe you're a North Metro guy or gal and want to work with Andy Hedlund out of Rogers. That's okay too. Give him a call. 763-QUOTE-IT is the number. 763-786-8348. Or check him out online at thehockeyagent.com. That's State Farm Insurance and agents Eric Means and Andy Hedlund. Two guys that take care of us, and they'll take good care of you as well. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Sieve and the Scribe podcast. I am Dan Myers from Wild.com. Joining me as always, Kevin Gore from Valley Sports North. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Dan. Good to see you, and going to see a lot of you here this coming weekend in New York with the Minnesota Wild. And I got to say congratulations. You know, I mean this sincerely. You were like a kid in the candy store all weekend. There was 3-4 years of buildup. You'd been talking about Hockey Day Minnesota in Mankato, which is really basically your home. And you guys just nailed it. The city, just the way it played out was absolutely magical. We caught some fun weather, and I know you had a ball down there. So I want to say congratulations to you because I know it meant a lot to you.
It did mean a lot to me, and I'll comment on that here momentarily, but I should note that the Sieve and the Scribe podcast, I should have done this off the top, but that's okay, is brought to you by Minnesota Hockey Magazine and our friends, Kevin, at State Farm Insurance, Eric Means and Andy Hedlund agencies. We both know that we know both of these guys, both of them with some Maverick lineage. Eric Means, a former Gopher, Andy Hedlund, a former Maverick, now doing great things with their State Farm Insurance agencies. Eric Means, by the way, my agent, does a fantastic job, but thank you to them. And we mentioned the Mavericks, we mentioned Mankato, and Kevin, I'm actually, as we record this, it's Tuesday, January 25th. It's been a couple days since the big day down there. I'm actually now thawing out, finally, for the first time. It was 2 or 3 days where it was literally shivering. It was as cold as I've ever been in my entire life. But you know what? It was worth every second of it. The Maverick pride, as you saw with the purple suit and the gold tie, was just dripping out of me. I was in my element. Just a fantastic time. Major props to the LOCs down in Mankato. Well, I mean, they have been looking at this now for 4 years, 5 years, plotting, planning, and things went off. They'd tell you it didn't go off without a hitch, but you know what? For those of us kind of on the periphery and watching, bang up job. They knocked it out of the park, and they set the bar high for Halvey's White Bear Lake Club next year.
Yeah, the amount of volunteer work that went into this, the way the week came together, it's become a week-long celebration. It's become a hockey holiday. It's legit now, year 16. And just, you know, everything has its time. And there were special moments throughout the week. And every kid got to touch that rink that plays youth hockey in that area. And all the different teams got to play on that beautiful rink in that great setting. But to me, there's always a crescendo at the top of it. And there was a moment when I was in the broadcast booth for the men's game between St. Thomas and Minnesota State, and the snow was falling, and the teams were lined up, and the band was playing, and there were 10,000 people crowded into that area. And I got chills, and it wasn't because of the weather. I just got this feeling of, oh my God, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I was just so happy for everybody that put all the time in behind the scenes to have it play out the way it did. Minnesota State went out and played like one of the best teams in the country. They're likely going to be a team that gets to the Frozen Four and has a chance to win a national championship. But that moment in time, to me, will never be lost. It was incredible.
That moment for me came actually right after the Mavericks' first goal. I was down by the glass on the side of the stadium where, most of the people were, the big kind of grandstand back there. Mavericks score the goal. The horn hits, and that's cool. And then all of a sudden they kickstart the Ole, and there was like a half a second delay between the song and the people in the stands, and everyone, all 10,000 people just start doing the Ole, and they're singing. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because it was so cool. You go down to the Civic Center and you hear it when 5,000 people do it there, but to hear 10,000 strong, snow falling, just picturesque. I was lucky enough to capture it on Snapchat and send that out to all the people. So I have video evidence of it. Man, it's such a fun weekend. And I haven't watched it on TV yet. I have it saved on the DVR. I'm really excited to see what it looked like and how it played out on TV, because while the snow didn't help for the quality of hockey, and when that game was 2-1 in the second period and St. Thomas is on a breakaway in a blizzard, I was really starting to get a little nervous. It had to have just looked from a visual perspective like an absolute treat.
Yeah, I haven't seen our ratings yet, but this will be one of the highest rated ones, if not an all-timer. You just look at the way the day played out, and you're right. It was something special. And I think the video you're talking about with Stomper in the background just adds to it. It's legendary, and I loved it.
What timing on that? It was not planned, by the way. Did not see Stomper on my screen. I put the phone up behind me to take the snap of the crowd, and all of a sudden that little rascal just starts hopping through just like I just did my hand there. It was perfectly timed.
And I'll say this as a St. Thomas guy, and it was awesome to see them on that stage. And I think
absolutely,
I give their coaching staff, starting with Rico Blasi, a ton of credit to sign up for this, because he had to know months ago, or actually now a year and a half, 2 years ago, what this was going to look like. I mean, you're taking on one of the best programs in the country. You're a brand new Division I team. You're likely bringing a knife to a gunfight, and he didn't care. He wanted his kids to have that opportunity, and they had those cool old school sweaters. I had the chance to watch them practice today before, just to see the joy that those kids had in being a part of this day. And, I think 10, 20, 30 years down the road, when those kids are adults and talking to their kids or their grandkids, they're going to look at this and say, man, what an opportunity. How special is this that we got to be a part of it? They're not going to look at the score being 7-1 and think about all the different plays within that game. They wanted to have that exposure for this program, the new kid on the block. And I was proud as an alum of St. Thomas that they were lucky enough to be out there and be a part of Hockey Day Minnesota. And, it circles back to Mankato and how they drew this thing up. And, we're lucky on the side of the TV angle here to have those conversations with the Mike Hastings and the folks from the LOC and the pride they took, and even, having the opportunity to put this on. But I know how much went into this, and it was a celebration of hockey in southern Minnesota. It was a celebration of hockey in Mankato, and specifically a celebration of Minnesota State Mankato, who now is a big dog in college hockey, and they showed it over the weekend.
To that point, Kevin, I'm as big a Mavericks rube as you'll find. I love to lord my team's victories over alums of other programs. And you mentioned that, 20, 30 years from now, they're not going to remember the score. The game was 3 days ago, and I barely remember the score. Like, for me, even on the winning side, side, it was about the experience, and that's what I am certainly going to remember from the day. And I too, I'm like you. I'm happy St. Thomas was a part of it. It's such a great stage for them and that program as it continues to build and hopefully turn itself here into a Division I power. It's actually a nice segue, Kevin, because St. Thomas, the men played on Saturday. The women played outside there at Blakesley Stadium on Sunday. And the head coach of the St. Thomas women's program, you might know him. He's also going to be coaching at the Olympics, Team USA women's hockey, coming up later next month. He's coming up later in our show. Kevin and I had a good chat with Joel Johnson. Now, segueing off of Hockey Day, as hard as that is for me because I'm still in such Hockey Day mode, I'm having a lot of re-entry difficulties coming back into kind of normal citizen life here. You and I were at Xcel Energy Center last night for an absolute thumping of a hockey game. Minnesota 8-2 over the Montreal Canadiens, a game that was close for, about a minute and a half? maybe 2 minutes. Montreal scores first. The Wild answers back less than 2 minutes later and rolls from there. Kevin, your thoughts as Minnesota extended its point streak to 7 games. It's won 6 of its past 7 overall and looked really, really good for long stretches during that time.
Yeah, for me, Dan, it's every night I learn something new about this hockey team, and we're starting to see Matt Boldy grow up before our very eyes. And as a fan of the hockey team, I'm so excited to see the potential that he possesses. I look at that fourth line. We got to see the first NHL goal for Connor Dewar within that game with his mom and dad in the stands, and he had a multi-point game. I just look at the way these guys enjoy and love each other, and I think of the frustration that Montreal showed late in the game. And Matt Dumba can hold his own in any situation. He showed that time and time again, but there's Marcus Foligno sticking up for his fellow captain. Later in the game, off a faceoff, there's Jordy Ben sticking up for the fourth line youngsters. I love this team. I love the people. I love the coaching staff. And it's hard to believe, Dan, because we sit here and it feels like we've been doing it and watching this team for such a long time. And they haven't even got to the halfway point of this hockey season. They won't get there until next week when they play in Chicago, game number 41. So I think they continue to get better. I think they're one of the best teams in this league. I think they've proven that. And I'm really excited for where this is headed. I just want to soak it all up and enjoy week by week, game by game. I'm looking forward to going to New York this weekend. But I got to tell you, as a Minnesota sports fan, I'm trying not to get too excited and even think about that big silver trophy. But it sure feels like this team's going to have a chance here in the next few years to make some kind of run. There's some magic over there right now in St. Paul, and I'm buying in.
More Wild chatter with us here in a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Sports fans, come on down to Tom Reed's Hockey City Pub for one of the best dining experiences around. Great food, an awesome staff, and amazing atmosphere is waiting for you just minutes from Xcel Energy Center on West 7th in St. Paul. Whether you're watching a game, attending a concert, or just out for a good time, Tom's is the place to be. Enjoy twofers during all live Minnesota Wild games, Viking games, and Packer games. Now serving breakfast on Sundays until 2 p.m. While dining, check out the collection of over 400 pieces of hockey memorabilia. Having a get-together? Let them cater your event. They have room for you in their newly remodeled back bar with extra parking in their brand new parking lot. It's Tom Reed's Hockey City Pub. Give them a call, 651-292-9916. That's 651-292-9916 to schedule your next event. And check them out on the web at tomreeds.com. And if you see Tom, don't mention Ken Dryden.
The Functional Neurology Center is a Minnetonka-based clinic staffed by a caring and progressive team of chiropractic neurologists who are experienced in treating post-concussion syndrome, chronic pain, dizziness, whiplash, migraine, and performance enhancement. They are the concussion doctors that you can trust for your comprehensive brain health in Minnesota and who have helped many local professional hockey players that include Mark Parrish, Brock Nelson, Zach Parisi, and Tyler Nanny. The FNC combines innovative technological therapies with manual therapy to improve human function.
My name is Mark Parrish, and I played hockey for 15 years and professionally, and I had some concussions, some head issues. We heard about Dr. Schmo, and we're certainly glad I did, because the difference from not just session to session during the day, but from day to day has been drastic. And just with suffering from sleep depravity for years, the last 3-4 nights I've slept like a baby and slept again like I did before I had kids, for crying out loud.
You can find them online at thefnc.com.
Sieve and the Scribe, episode 5, presented by Minnesota Hockey Magazine and State Farm Insurance, Eric Means and Andy Hedlund Agencies. Kevin, I don't know if you saw this last night. I know, Mike Russo had it in a story. It was put out by our good friend Wild Joe Radio on Twitter today. A comment from Jamie Benn after the game last night that, not Jamie Benn, Jordy Benn. It's the second time I've made the Jamie Jordy thing. Jordy Benn. He plays for the Wild. Jamie plays for the Stars. Jordy Benn, comment from him after the game where he's asked about kind of the first month of the season where he didn't play much. You think back, to October, and really he was a healthy scratch on most nights when this D-core was at full strength. John Merrill got the opening night start and played so well he didn't cede the spot. was asked how hard that was, and the fact that when Jonas Brodin comes back, hopefully in the next little stretch here, that he may find himself on the outside looking in again, despite the fact that he's playing fantastic hockey right now. And he said, you know what? That's kind of the way it's been all year long. And who wouldn't want to have Jonas Brodin in the lineup? And if that means I'm the guy that has to sit out, then it means I am the guy that has to sit out. Just an incredible perspective, I think, from a guy who is a veteran in this league, has played a lot of good hockey in the National Hockey League. Just pretty remarkable when you think about how selfless this team is and how team-focused and team-oriented this Wild group is right now.
I think that's the winning combination. You have to have some talent. You have to have skill, which they do. They've got some high-enders here. But hockey's a game of camaraderie and chemistry behind the scenes. Teams that win love each other and take care of each other. And that's the one thing that's really, I think, dramatically changed here in the last calendar year for this hockey club. And that's the culture that they've created. And it starts with Dean Evison and Bill Guerin. It works its way through the coaching staff, and then it gets into those the quote unquote leaders in this locker room. And I look at the character of men that Jared Spurgeon and Matt Dumba and Marcus Foligno are, and there are other great leaders on this team, but that's what's expected. And I think Jordy Ben, being the veteran player, gets it. Like, he wants a run here. He wants a chance to make a Stanley Cup run. And he also realizes that even if Jonas Brodin gets healthy in the next few weeks and he's out for a while, there's going to be other players that get banged up, other players that have COVID. And he's got his game to a good place right now. He's playing with Matt Dumba. Like, he's playing a top 4 role right now. This guy's playing great hockey, to your point, Dan. And again, I marvel at some of the moves Bill Guerin made. I didn't know a lot about Dmitry Kulikov. I didn't know a lot about John Merrill. I knew a little bit about Jordy Ben, of our battles with Jamie Benn in Dallas, and he's been down there and he's been all over the league. But they've done their job at the management level. They've found these players on good contracts, team-friendly deals, and they're getting great play out of them. It's just it's fun right now. Honestly, it's just like last night, looking around that building, everybody's having a good time. Like, this is a damn good hockey team, and we should just sit back and enjoy, like, game by game, week by week, what this season is providing. And there are so many moments, like Hockey Day over the weekend. We got the unbelievable moment, another tying goal late, and a Marcus Foligno overtime goal. Last night, Kirill Kaprizov, with all the unbelievable plays he made. He could have had 8 points last night himself. And then that moment when they got the ovation and the 100-point recognition, I don't know. There's just, like I said, there's magic in St. Paul right now, and there's something new every single night.
About the only downfall for Minnesota last night, the fact that Cam Talbot returned from a lower body injury that he sustained back in the Winter Classic, was his first game back in, I guess, almost a month. Plays the first 2 periods, allows a goal a minute and a half in, shuts the door after that. After the game, Coach Dean Evison said that he doesn't think it's serious, re-aggravated the previous injury, but in a different spot. Said he could have come back into the game, but at that point, I believe it was, 5-1? 5-1 after 2, so no reason to really push it there. Now, my next point here isn't to say I'm concerned about Wild goaltending, because I think Kaapo Kähkönen's been fantastic. He came in 15 games this year, 9-2-2 record, a save percentage over .920. I'm confident that he can carry the load just fine, but I think this team, Kevin, is at its best when it has 2 goalies able to go out there. Any team would be good having both its full complement of goalies. What is your concern level right now with Cam Talbot as he tries to sort of rehab whatever this lower body injury is and get healthy? Because there's no more 2.5-week Olympic break coming up where he's going to have some time to get off the ice and just rest and relax. The Wild schedule is only going to pick up here as we get into February and March.
Yeah, it's very troubling for me because he looked good. Like, I watched him last night, and you mentioned the first puck went in on a really nice play by Montreal on the opening shift of that game. And then I really wanted to kind of watch and see how he was moving, because, you think of what this injury likely is. It's all about the movement in that crease. And he was sharp. He was out on his angle. He was moving laterally very well and efficiently. And so it caught me off guard when they came out for the third period and he wasn't on the bench and Kaapo was back in the crease. So it's certainly something we have to monitor. And I think for Bill Guerin and that group, you got to now take a hard, long look at if Andrew Hammond can be that guy. Are we going to give him a look here? You've got 40 games in 77 nights to close out this season. You are going to need 2 goaltenders, and you're not going to want to play Kaapo Kähkönen 35 times in that stretch if you hope to be a team to make a run at the Stanley Cup. So if you think that this thing can blow over and we're good and Cam Talbot's going to be healthy, then we're going to be just fine. They know a lot more behind the scenes than we know sitting here recording the Sieve and the Scribe. So then you have to start looking at the trade deadline, and do you want to make a move? Are there a veteran goalie or two out there like a Braden Holtby that you want to take a look at? Because this team's good enough and worthy of it where you have to give them the best chance to succeed. I'm hoping and praying for Cam Talbot because not only is he a great goalie, I love the chemistry that he and Capo have, and I love the teammate that he is in that locker room. He's a very well-liked, well-respected guy. So I think their best mode of operation moving forward is a healthy Cam Talbot. That's what I want. But if it's not 100% certain, then Bill Guerin's going to have some questions to answer.
Also for Cam Talbot coming up, I know this is one of those personal things, and obviously what happens with the team here moving forward is most important, but the All-Star game in Las Vegas is about a week and a half away. Cam Talbot was named to his first All-Star team. I know he's 33, 34 years old. Has had a lengthy career here in the NHL, been around a long time. It would be really cool for him to be able to play in that game. So hopefully what's bothering him is minor. Maybe a few days of rest here and some days between the Wild is back in action in New York. He'll be ready to go. Kevin, we do have trade deadline coming up, still a couple months away, but it's getting to that point now. You get after the All-Star game. That's kind of the next tentpole event that we have coming up. You've mentioned it. Sounds like you think Minnesota is a team that very well could get into the trade market, and I agree with you. If you're Bill Guerin, this is a team that looks like it can make a deep, long run. I know I heard during the intermission last night on the Wild radio broadcast, Pierre McGuire, the longtime NHL analyst who's now a scout with Ottawa, he says Colorado and Minnesota are the two best teams he's seen this year. And when you look at the overall body of work, it's hard to argue with that.
I would throw Carolina and Florida into the conversation on the other side, on the East. But you're right. In the West, they're the two best teams I've seen. And they play that up-tempo, high-octane hockey. I think Minnesota defends a little bit better than Colorado. I think Colorado has the best offensive defenseman in the game in Cale Makar. So, it's exciting right now. And so, I think if you're Minnesota, do you have to do a lot? No, you probably don't. The goalie situation, something I would look at. I wouldn't touch a lot anywhere else. You've got depth on that blue line. You've got four lines that are going. And as tempting as it might be to make a move with Kevin Fiala, you can still do something with him in the offseason. And I'm telling you, as much as we love watching Zuccarello and Kaprizov and what they've got going, and they've done it now for a season and a half, it's legitimate right now what Boldy and Fiala have. They're both tremendously better with each other by their side, and I wouldn't touch that thing because with Matt Boldy right now, who's still in the single digits for games played at the NHL level, who knows where this thing can go? This kid looks better every single game. He could have had 5 or 6 points last night, and Kevin Fiala is rolling right now. So I don't think you touch it anywhere. I mean, you take a look at the goaltending situation, but, I wouldn't mess with a lot right now with what this team has cooking.
The fun part about me, when you think about this team and how could we tweak it to make it better? Where could we add a piece in order to sort of put the team over the top? And you look at a lot of these contending teams. I know Colorado's in the market for a defenseman. Toronto's in the market for a defenseman. And it seems like all these contenders are always looking for, let's go pick up one more blue liner. Let's go pick up, one more depth piece. And you look at the Wild, they don't need any help on that blue line. They're as deep as it gets. We've talked about Merrill and Ben. One of those guys, when everyone is healthy, is a seventh defenseman. And those are the kind of guys that teams in the past have gone out to acquire at the trade deadline as one more veteran piece to, add that depth. And to go further, Kalen Addison is down in Iowa. And if not for these two veterans, Dean Evason's told us Kalen Addison will probably be playing every night. He's ready to go. So I don't think Minnesota has any concerns on the blue line. So you go, all right, that part's done. The goalie part you've talked about, I agree with. You got to analyze that health. If you need to go get something there, fine. But to your point, I don't think you need to go, find some top-end rental and give away the store for a guy when you have that top line that's cooking as well as it is with Ryan Hartman between them. That Joel Eriksson, Jordan Greenway, Marcus Foligno is going to be an absolute bear for teams to handle, I think, come postseason time especially. And now you're talking about, all right, well, where do we want to tinker? That fourth line last night has a lot of young guys on it. Dewar, Sturm, and Duhaime, a homegrown line of fourth line players. But you really want to break up that energy and that speed and what those guys bring to the table. They play a really good grinding playoff brand of hockey, which leaves, do you go get a center to potentially put between Boldy and Fiala? Because like you, I'm not breaking those two up. They have incredible chemistry. They look a lot like Zuccarello and Kaprizov in terms of how they are able to play off each other, how their strengths play off each other. I'm with you, Kevin. There's not a whole lot of gray area on this team where you got to go out and say, yeah, we need that or we need this. They're pretty well locked and loaded right now.
Yeah, and Freddie Gaudreau is a player that's really found his role with this team, his niche, so to speak. And Dean Evison loves him.
Yep.
I mean, penalty kill guy, face-off guy. And let's not forget that, if you've got a Matt Boldy who plays the game a lot like a center, you've got a Freddie Gaudreau there that can play good defense, can win you a face-off, and can let those two guys go out there and be aggressive in the offensive zone. So no, I don't touch it there. I don't need a center right now. A few months ago, I might have said, yeah, let's go get a big-time center. I don't think so. The only area I would watch, and again, I believe in Koppel. I believe in Cam. I really do. I think they're a great 1-2 punch. Koppel doesn't have a lot of playoff experience, and Cam right now is dealing with something. That's the only area I'm concerned. If you tell me both guys are healthy, and looking at March and April and how busy those 2 months are going to be, and they can go out there and play their games and get their reps, then I don't touch a thing. If there are question marks at that position, you might want to get a little insurance. And it won't be super expensive to go out and get a veteran goaltender that's got playoff experience. I threw out Braden Holtby only because I think he'll be affordable. He's won a Stanley Cup in Washington. And I think that's an obvious name that's out there. There's a bunch of names you could throw in that conversation. But if all things are equal, I'm telling you, I'm not changing a thing.
Well, the NHL is still sorting itself out here right now. A couple months, again, before the trade deadline hits. Other teams will jump back into the race. Others will fall back out. That will, of course, determine buyers and sellers here as we get closer to the trade deadline and who's out there. One more point here I want to make before we get to our guest, Joel Johnson. Kevin, I know you love New York. We are headed to New York this weekend. The Wild will have a Big Apple double dip. I'm looking forward to seeing the new, it's called UBS Arena, right? Out on the island, out by your favorite horse track.
Belmont Park, baby.
I keep wanting to call it USB Arena, but that is a computer part. That's not the name of an arena.
I'm just going to call it Belmont Park.
There you go, Belmont. Well, you've been talking about this horse track for years since I've known you, and now I'm going to get a chance to at least see, maybe the outside of it, right? So I'll get to see what all the fuss is about. But I know you love New York City. We're going to be in Manhattan Thursday night and Friday night. I've been looking forward to this trip all season long. One, to go see a new barn. I love seeing new barns. But two, Henrik Lundqvist going to have his number retired Friday night. I know Matt Zuccarello is really excited. His best bud going to be in town for that. But for you, these are always special ceremonies. We were in Calgary a couple of years ago when they did Jerome McGinley's thing. Super cool. But to be in Madison Square Garden, to watch the Rangers retire a number, that's hockey immortality. And you as a former goalie, how cool would it be to see King Henrik's number go into the rafters at MSG?
Yeah, I'm giddy. I'm giddy with excitement for this trip. And, when my friends, like over the holidays, if I get together with family and friends, they always ask me, what's your favorite venue? What's your favorite spot to watch a game? I'm a little bit torn because I love United Center in Chicago, but it always comes back to Madison Square Garden. That is my very favorite place to watch the Wild on the road. And when you factor in a future Hall of Fame goalie like Lundqvist, the relationship with Zuccarello and Cam Talbot, and what this night is going to provide at this glorious building, I literally, kind of like you and Mankato, I'll just be smiling from ear to ear, soaking it all up. A legendary goalie, and just a special night. And the Wild are so lucky to be there for this event. We're going to cover a bunch of this on Valley Sports North on Friday night. And I know how much it means to Zuccarello and Cam Talbot. I hope to have conversations with them tomorrow at Tria Rink after practice, because this is one of those, again, you talk about we're privileged to be in the spots we're in, Dan. we're lucky to be on that airplane. We're lucky to travel with this team, whether they win or lose. It's an honor to be a part of the National Hockey League like we are. But these are the nights that stand out. And I'm going to sit down there against the glass in my little corner of the world at Madison Square Garden, and I'll be like I was as a 7 or 8-year-old watching the North Stars at Met Center. I'll be in awe of the moment, and I can't wait to get there.
I am with you there, bud. And you mentioned Mankato. Got to give a shout out, by the way, to the Cougars. Big win at Hockey Day, Minnesota. The night before, our guy, Coach Adam Freeze, joined us actually on episode 4. If you haven't gone back and heard that, it was Hockey Day intensive. We did it from on site. We talked to Mike Hastings. We talked to Shane Frederick, and, of course, Coach Adam Freeze. If you haven't listened to it yet, go back and listen to it. Some really timely, fun nuggets and stories told there. This, of course, is episode 5, and we've got another Olympics-related guest on the way. St. Thomas women's head coach Joel Johnson. He will be coaching Team USA women's hockey at the Olympics. And he's up next on the Sieve and the Scribe, presented by State Farm Insurance, Eric Means, and Andy Headland Agencies, as well as MinnesotaHockeyMagazine.com, after a word from our sponsor.
The Sieve and the Scribe want to thank one of our founding sponsors, Tim Cortez Studio, for supplying the artwork for our podcast. Cortez is a famed artist and former Gopher goaltender whose work is prominently displayed on the exterior of Duluth's Heritage Sports Center in a series of 20-foot by 34-foot banners representing commitment, dedication, courage, honor, hard work, teamwork, integrity, and sportsmanship. Check out his art at www.timcortez.net. That's TIMCORTES.net, or follow Tim Cortez Studio on Facebook, where you can find commission work for the United States Hockey Hall of Fame and the UMD Bulldogs championship teams. Email timcortezstudios@gmail.com for more information.
Hey, pal, you already know that CrankyApe.com is the coolest auction site on the web for everything that rolls, floats, or has an engine. But did you know we'll also sell your toys for you? Why deal with sketchy characters, tire kickers, and no-shows when you can have the ape do it? It's a heck of a lot easier, and if you're not built like me, a lot safer too. Just go to CrankyApe.com and click on the blue burst. I'll take it from there. CrankyApe.com. Why monkey around anywhere else?
Welcome back to the Sieve and the Scribe podcast, episode 5, presented by Minnesota Hockey Magazine and our friends at State Farm Insurance, Eric Means and Andy Headland. Thanks for them for sponsoring our show. Two great former hockey players and folks around the hockey community in Minnesota know all about those guys. Our guest today, a very, very special one, Joel Johnson, the head coach of the University of St. Thomas women's hockey program, but more, I guess, timely than even that with the Olympics on the horizon, the head coach for Team USA women as they head to Beijing here pretty soon. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I appreciate hearing the broadcast sponsors too. I think of Eric Means and all the fun times I had coaching against him. I remember watching a Gopher game a while back, way back, and he lost a shin pad. However that happened in the middle of a play, and he still went out to block a shot. So good hockey community supports everybody, right?
I love Meansy. I know, Kevin, you do too. Has not always been the brightest bulb on the tree, but you know what? You got to admire him for his guts, right?
Guy works hard on and off the ice. He has all his life. Work hard, play hard. That's been his motto, and certainly a guy I've always admired.
Coach, let's just what do the next couple weeks look like for you here ahead of the start of the Olympic Games? I know it's probably going to be a crazy couple weeks. Just give us and give our listeners a little peek inside of what the next, call it 14 to 20 days is going to look like for head coach Joel Johnson.
It's going to be interesting. We just arrived in Los Angeles last night as a group and came straight to the USO. USA Hockey, it's not USA Hockey, USOPC, the committee came right to the hotel and got acclimated here and are just kind of getting our bearings for a couple days here in Los Angeles. So we'll go through what they call processing, which for people that don't know what that is, it just means that the players get acclimated, they get all of their swag and hang out with other athletes, of course, if approved with COVID and some of those details. And then on Thursday, assuming that the pandemic doesn't get in the way, we'll all jump on a plane and travel to Beijing. And it'll be a long travel day. I think we depart, I don't even know what time because it doesn't matter, but it's 13 and a half hours or something to Seoul, Korea. And then we sit on the ground for about 90 minutes and then 2.5 hours to Beijing after that. I've kind of gone on record saying that 90-minute layover without being able to get off the plane might be the end of me. But then we'll get to Beijing and get going. And I think the first few days, we've got 5 practice days before we play our first game against Finland. And, the first practice day is obviously probably a little bit of a wash. It'll be the day after we land, and we'll have skipped a day, somehow based on time zone changes. So that day is just going to be, hey, let's make sure that we're using the right sticks and everybody ties their skate and just gets a little workout and try to reset the body clock. And then we've got a few practices that are going to be really important because through the last month of January, we thought it was going to look one way with a preparation phase, and then everything changes with the day-to-day aspect of the Omicron variant and COVID, and so we've had to adjust, and just like every federation has for hockey, and so we'll try to focus and make sure we're prepared from the on ice point of view, and then get ready to play Finland. I think on the 5th of February or whatever day that is. I'm just going like 12 hours at a time at this point.
And bringing a team together like this, you get to know them. You guys spend a lot of time together. You get a feel for the camaraderie and the chemistry. How has that come together for Team USA?
I think the biggest thing, I have had the privilege, and part of it's just because I've been around long enough to get to know some of these players, whether coaching them at a younger level with the national team or in college, or coaching against them in college. And so it's really been fun to watch now that we're all in the same group, wearing the same sweater, wearing the same warm-ups, how they are really a family. And I think, I've shared this with our team so many times, I'm getting tired of the catchphrases during this pandemic of adapt and adjust, but really that's what it is. It's every day you show up to the rink and somebody might not be available. And so I've never been in this spot. I've never played wing. I wasn't used to this part of the power play or penalty kill. And I think what you're seeing, I look at the NHL, I look at men's and women's pro hockey right now, and the teams that have the most depth and flexibility, and can really just rely on so many different people to do so many different things. Those are the teams that kind of are leading the charge. And I think that's the strength of our team. I saw Kendall Coyne Schofield had a quote the other day of, our ability to adapt and adjust as a team has been our strength as we've gone through the residency. And I think she's spot on.
Joel, does it ever get old when you think about, being the head coach for the United States at the Olympics? I mean, you look at that logo there on your chest. It's got to just be something special, especially here now as we're so close to this thing actually, getting underway.
Yeah, it's Dan, it's the greatest professional honor that I've ever had in my life. There's great moments that you have as on your personal side, and whether that's family or what you have, but as a professional, in particular in women's hockey, this is the greatest honor and privilege that I've ever been given, and it does not escape me every day. I challenged our team, not that they needed a challenge, but I reminded them. I wore my the first ever warm-up jacket that I got in 1999, working a USA hockey camp. And I remember getting that in 1999 and thinking it was the coolest thing ever. And I was just pushing pucks and just kind of making sure that the practice went okay. And I still have that warm-up jacket. It's actually now back in style. Went out of style for about a decade, and now it's back. But I wore it out yesterday before we left. And I just say that this is, I want to remind you to choose joy every single moment you have, and to choose to be grateful for these opportunities because they're so special. And that's how I see it. I learned a long time ago that when you treat something that's special as special, it stays that way. But if you treat something that's special as ordinary, then it becomes ordinary, it becomes routine. And so you've got four-year Olympians, you've got first-time Olympians, And we all need to just get up every morning and realize what an opportunity this is and what a privilege it is. And I do that myself. And if I don't, the days that I struggle, the days that I get tired and fatigued, my wife sends me a text or reminds me over the phone to be quiet and just enjoy the moment, because it's a pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah, and you guys are the defending champs. Team USA, of course, won gold last time, one of the greatest hockey games I've ever witnessed. And there's good and bad with that, Joel. You know, the bad part is you got a target on your back. Every team's gunning for you. But the good part is you've got some girls on this roster that have achieved the greatest honor, winning that gold medal. How much do you rely on them as you prepare for this? And how much are you going to rely on them once the games get going?
Yeah, there's no question, Kevin, that you go as your leaders go. And then sometimes you go when some little young rookie makes a special play. But over the course of a 2 to 3 week tournament, you know that you're going to need both. And certainly in those big spots, it could be a block shot, it could be a simple D zone faceoff, it could be a lot of things. We're gonna rely on our leadership and our veteran play to provide the consistency and the excellence that they have shown. That they know if they play a certain way, they're going to win a gold medal. And I think that's what your point was. And I think I can't agree more. That they know if they put the work in, they can expect a result. There's no guarantees. We all know that. But at the end of the day, we want to be measured by the color of medal that we're wearing. And yet we're never going to be defined that way. We're going to treat it the same way. We're going to go into the room and say, here's how we want to play. Here's what we're going to do, whether there's a target on our back or anything. So we know there's some uncertainty, but if we can control the thing that we think we should be able to, and that comes from our veteran leadership, then I look forward to sticks and gloves on the ice. That's for sure.
This is the Sieve and the Scribe, episode 5, presented by Minnesota Hockey Magazine and State Farm Insurance Agencies. Eric Means and Andy Hedlund, thanks to them. Coach Joel Johnson is our guest, getting ready for the Olympics coming up here in a couple of weeks in Beijing. And Coach, to me, men's, women's, name the sport at any Olympics, summer, winter, the matchup I look forward to most, and I am not kidding when I say this, is on the women's side, USA versus Canada. The intensity is second to none. The skill, the speed, it is fantastic hockey. I know you have a game against Finland first. I'm not sure exactly what the schedule looks like after that. But how much do you look forward to seeing what your team is going to be like, tested against a team like Canada, and knowing that, you know, at the end of the day, those are the two teams that are probably the two best in the tournament and very well could decide things at the end?
Yeah, the rivalry is special, and for any hockey fan, I think that the good news is there's been enough coverage of the women's U.S.-Canada rivalry to actually generate a familiarity within the hockey community, and so I think everybody knows it's prime time. It's the best versus the best, and certainly that's not to disrespect Finland, who came within a hair of winning the World Championships in 2019 when they played us, and they've beaten the U.S., they've beaten Canada at U18 levels, at the national team levels. Switzerland and Russia are rounding out the other two teams in Group A, and but there is something special about the Team USA versus Hockey Canada games, and the thing that impresses me most, to be honest, Dan, is when I look at the players and how they advocate for the growth of women's hockey on the world stage. They collectively do that, both the Canadians and Americans. There's some recent stuff, whether it's a book coming out or a video game. There's all kinds of neat stuff that's happening to provide an opportunity for young girls all across North America to see their role models, whether they're wearing the red or whether they're wearing a blue. And then all of a sudden the puck drops and you hate one another more in a really respectful way, and so there's net front battles and there's after the whistle confrontation. And it just reminds me, going back when I was watching, the NHL playoffs as a kid in the, late 70s, early 80s, when you just see people battle. And I know they still do that. It just looks a little different with all the TV timeouts and all the skill plays and everything. But at some point, there's just an absolute battle that takes place. Might be in a corner, might be at the net front. It might be a race down the ice. And it reminds me of what makes hockey so great at its core is just two people that respect each other, that are willing to fight for their team. And at the end of the day, just want to compete and want to win.
Dan and I are lucky enough to have gotten to know Gigi Marvin this year because she joined the traveling party on the wild side of things, working with our broadcast on Bally Sports North. And we've had some conversations about growing the game and the impact that these Olympic Games can have for the girls' game here in the United States. When you look at the task that's in front of you and you look at some of the great moments that you're likely going to have with this team, knowing that you're going to be coaching at St. Thomas for years to come here, and the game growing is probably a good thing at all levels. How much fun is it to see what you guys can do to impact growing the game of hockey on the girls' side?
Yeah, I think, first of all, with Gigi, what an incredible person. She's just done so many remarkable things to grow the game in the Midwest, in Minnesota, certainly, obviously in Warroad. And, I remember recruiting Gigi back when she was in high school, and she and I have been good friends over the years. But when I think about the opportunity for these players to impact the game, all I need to do is just look every day. I watch them watch when we go on the road, when we're playing some of these My Wide Tour games, the people, I saw us lose a tough game, and three of our players, two of our captains and another player are out in a question and answer. Just stuff you don't see in other sports, male or female. You see these players who know that if you can see it, you can be it, and they want to put themselves out there in a visual way. So there's all kind of people and parents and families, and especially little girls, can sit there and say, this is what I want to do someday. And that just continues to happen. We left our training facility in Blaine, Minnesota yesterday, and there's just a lineup of a local elementary school, and it was an unbelievable, little signs, it was 0 degrees out. And so everybody was, just in a snowsuit. I think it might've been recess time. And it was just unbelievable. So I just see the impact that these players have, and the growth of the game is on the men's and women's side. And that's my favorite part is there was just as many young boys out there cheering our national team on and our Olympic team as there was girls. And that's what just goes back to the fact that this team and the rivalry and their involvement in the Olympics is captured at the highest stage. And we're looking forward to continuing that.
Coach, you talked about, that competitiveness, with Team Finland. And I wanted to ask, the national scene or the international scene in women's hockey has been dominated by the United States and Canada for so long now, going back, 20, 25 years, really from the very beginning of women's hockey being in the Olympics back in 1998. But we're seeing that disparity shrink now. Other countries are really starting to make more of an investment, more of a focus on women's hockey, and other nations are really starting to put themselves on the map. Just how good can that be, not only for the quality of women's hockey, but what we're going to see at the Olympics here in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think that what you're seeing is grassroots levels in other federations across the world. And you look at some, the Finlands and Swedens of the world on the men's side, and they're just so dominant in terms of their development and how they produce incredible teams and incredible players. And so what you're seeing is, with the more exposure that women's hockey gets on the international stage, whether it's the IHF or the Olympics, you're seeing other federations in other countries really start to, put some roots down at the local level and make sure that players and families have the opportunity to play. And so I've seen it, coaching U18 teams and U22 teams, and now the national team, the Olympic team. Like I said, we played a game against Finland in 2019 that if you ask them, they think they should have won. And if you ask me, I'm glad we did in a shootout, and so, the growth in Finland, the growth in other areas, I think Switzerland is a team that I watched upset Russia and in the last World Championships, and they're on the rise. You look at the collegiate involvement of some of these players that come over here to the NCAA level and train and compete, and they bring that excellence back to their national teams. And you're starting to really see an investment of coaching and an investment of resources. Do we have a long way to go? Yes, absolutely. The women's hockey world needs to grow in so many ways, including some of those traditional men's powers. But what you're seeing is it's grabbing hold based, I think, largely on the exposure that U.S., Canada, and now Finland and Switzerland and Russia are gaining. And now you're seeing the Czech Republic come in, and you're seeing Japan, and you're seeing, professional leagues in China, and you're just seeing an incredible opportunity for young people to watch the sense, just like it happened in basketball with the WNBA, just like it's happening, in other aspects. I look at soccer in the U.S. and the exposure that the women's team gets versus the men's team, and frankly, more people are interested in watching the women's national team, and so I think as that continued growth happens in the women's hockey side of things, you're just going to see more and more parity, which is a good thing for the game.
Yeah, Coach, you've had a front row seat for a long, long time at the University of Minnesota in a couple of different capacities there, including the last almost dozen years, right, as associate head coach there. And now you have an opportunity to build a program from scratch. Just how fun is that when you kind of think about when you dive into that kind of full time here once the Olympics are done, having the opportunity to really mold and build something from the ground up?
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity, and I think, when we talk about entering the WCHA and going from Division 3 to Division 1, it feels like you're starting brand new. But as I've shared with our players, one of the greatest moments has been seeing the foundation that's already there. Kevin can speak to the success that he knows of and has been a part of, on the women's side at St. Thomas, and both the men and the women at St. Thomas from a hockey point of view, and frankly for all sports, has just truly left a mark. So there's a foundation in place that now I think the greatest thing that I can add is just the experience that I have at the Division 1 level to kind of come in and say, well, this is a different landscape. So we just need to tweak things. We just need to adjust this. We need to change this and look at a few little details. But I'll tell you what, the best thing for me, there was one day in practice, a pregame skate before one of our first few games, and I saw one of our returning players who had just been a Division 3 player for a long time, and a little bit of tear in her eye, and I thought there was maybe potentially something wrong, and she's feeling a little down, and she just said, "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is the opportunity we get." And I think that's been the special part. And I think that's what makes me so excited. And I know there's a good foundation. We've got players on our team who are leading our team in scoring that were never recruited as Division 1 hockey players. And they're proving that they can be a thriving player in the WCHA and the world of Division 1 hockey. So there's a foundation there, and we are excited about the people we've got coming in the future. And like I said earlier, the chance to build it is great. We got a great foundation. And now we'll just keep building on that culture and that identity, because the university sells itself, and anybody that's been a part of it knows it's just a matter of time before I think that the University of St. Thomas is going to be a place where people feel like they can get a great opportunity at the Division 1 hockey level.
I look at the success you guys had with the maroon and gold of the Gophers, and when I think of you, I think of Brad Frost. When I think of him, I think of you. You guys were such a great team at the top of that hockey program with 6 national championships. How much will you rely on that time with Frosty? How is that friendship? It's going to change absolutely, because you're not together every single day. You're not working for the same team, and now you're competing against each other. But how much will that change, and how much will that impact what you do at St. Thomas in the years to come?
Yeah, I think the relationship that Brad and I have goes back, but before we were coaching, it was back, as college roommates, and so nothing's going to change in terms of that interaction. He would used to get mad at me when I would, box him out in front of the net in practice, and now we're just going to carry that competition into games against one another. But certainly the job that he's done at the University of Minnesota speaks for itself. The ability for me to be a part of that was just very fortunate for me, and our lives have continued to cross paths with our families and with our professional life. So I don't think anything will change. It'll just feel really good to beat him, and I know he would say the same thing, that it feel really good to beat me.
Couple more here to close with Coach Joel Johnson, University of St. Thomas, as well as Team USA, Olympic women's hockey on the Sieve and the Scribe, presented by Minnesota Hockey Magazine and State Farm Insurance, Eric Means and Andy Hedlund Agencies. Joel, the WCHA is such a tough league to really gain much headway. I mean, you know this, being a part of the University of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Minnesota Duluth, these powerhouses that have been around for 2+ decades now. But you look more recently, Ohio State, one of the top teams in the country. I know being down in Mankato this weekend, Minnesota State's got a better team, and they really feel strongly about their next couple recruiting classes. They feel like they're going to have an opportunity to maybe jump up into that mix. We've seen some of these schools out on the East Coast really become powers. How are you seeing kind of the landscape of women's hockey changing? Of course, you're still going to have those blue blood type schools that are going to be near the top, but it seems like anyway, as competitive as maybe it's been ever since at least it was sanctioned as an NCAA women's sport almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, you're spot on. When it was sanctioned 30 years ago or whatever the date was, the power was in the East. That's just because those programs had been around enough to establish an identity and a reputation. And then the WCHA came in and you had some traditional places. I mean, you look at Wisconsin for the first, early part of their tenure in the WCHA, they didn't have near the success that they have now. Duluth has climbed up there early and had a ton of success and then dropped, and now they're back. Minnesota's gone, domination for this period of time and then down and up. And now, as you mentioned, Ohio State, I think the unique part, it reminds me a lot of Division III men's hockey. And I had the privilege to coach at Bethel University on the men's side in the MIAC and the MIAC conference. And the challenge in that league, there was always the one or two schools that could count on being at the top, but every weekend was such a grind. And so as we build things at St. Thomas, the real challenge for any school is who are you going to replace, right? Because you just say, well, we can climb the ladder, we can win a few more games, but that means you got to look up at the standings and say, who are we going to replace? And there just is a lot of good teams. But I think the key to that, and Ohio State's the best example recently, Minnesota Duluth as well, is all it takes is one or two wins. And then all of a sudden you feel like, yeah, we can replace them. And so then you capture a 2 to 3 period where all of a sudden you are there. And like I said, we've seen that with Ohio State the last few seasons where they just found a way to get over the hump a little bit. And next thing you know, now they just expect to win. They don't walk into any rink against anybody in the WCHA and feel like they can't beat them. And that's what I learned when I was coaching on, in the MIAC. And I think that'll help us as we go forward, because does it take time? Yeah, because you have to look up and say, well, how do we climb over whoever is the next person above us in the standings? Because that's tough. And then you say, well, how can we get to 3 or 4 or 5? But as I've shared with a bunch of people, I think when you can get to the middle of the WCHA, not only is that an accomplishment, you're in the national rankings, because each year, now that the women's tournament is expanded to 11 teams, you're going to get 3 to 4 teams from the WCHA that have a realistic chance of going to the national tournament. And at the end of the day, then it becomes a little bit more like the men's hockey, which has obviously got a lot more traction in history, where all you need is a chip and a chair, and you get an opportunity to go to the dance and see what happens.
My last question would be, you're going to the Winter Olympics, something I've never experienced. I've only watched it on TV. I don't even know with COVID restrictions, Joel, how that's going to look for you. But is there going to be a chance for you to, let it all kind of hit you and soak it all up and maybe go watch another event, whether it's outside, inside, figure skating, skiing, who knows? But you're going to be at the Winter Olympics in Beijing. What's that going to look like? And will you get a chance to really enjoy it the way you want to?
Yeah, I think it's going to look differently than it has in the past with restrictions. But what we've been told is most of the events and most of the areas, the housing, et cetera, the village are all on what they were calling a closed loop, bubble, if you will. So it's going to be pretty protected. And so once you establish that you're, you've tested out of COVID protocols, et cetera, I think there's going to be opportunities. And I've told myself and I've told our team, I'm going to encourage everybody to enjoy it to the best that they can. I think sometimes you hear about teams that just say, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything else, I'm just going to focus on my or competition. Certainly, we're going to put a priority on preparing and resting and eating well, but I'm going to absolutely do as much as I can. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for some, and other people you get to do it a few more times, but there's no chance I'm going to sit in the hotel room and over game plan. I'm going to enjoy it because I think that's when I'm at my healthiest. I think our players are at their healthiest when they're realizing what a special and unique opportunity this is, and I can't wait to experience it.
Head coach Joel Johnson, the University of St. Thomas, as well as Team USA Women's Olympic Hockey, here on the Sieve and the Scribe podcast. Coach, thank you so much for taking some time out of your insanely busy schedule right now as you prep for the Olympics and spend a little time with a couple of schlep rocks like us. Best of luck in Beijing, and go bring home the gold. We will be watching back here in Minnesota.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Kevin. It's great to catch up.
Great seeing you, even though it's virtually, and we'll be watching and cheering for you. I'm so proud to call you a friend. So excited for what you guys are going to go out and do, and just enjoy it. And thanks for taking the time today, Joel.
Will do.
Joel Johnson on the Sieve and the Scribe podcast, episode 5. We'll see you next week for episode 6.
Dave's Sports Shop in Fridley, Minnesota, the top hockey shop in the North Metro since 1969. Specializing in custom fit hockey gear, top quality skate sharpening. We've got a full lineup: CCM, Bauer, Sherwood, True, Vaughn, and many more. We also offer used and new skates. We'll take those old skates in on trade for your new skates. Dave's Sports Shop, where the winners shop. Come find out why. Mention this ad to get your free skate sharpening.